Welcome into episode 488 of the Skate Podcast. I am Brian DeFelice, joined by Bridget Prue and Scott McLaughlin. Bridget and Scott, it was a late start last night for the Bruins in Vegas. They fall to the Golden Knights 6-5. There's more bad than good to take from this game, especially when you give up 6 goals. There is a little bit of good. I'm sure we'll touch on it throughout the episode. But Bridget and Scott, let's get
Well,
right to it.
wait a minute. You had a later start.
Well, I did have a later start. I don't even know if Scott, I didn't even say this is Scott, right? Yeah,
No.
I was skating last night at a prime time 10:40 men's league game.
Nice.
Because there's nothing earlier than 10:40 in Tewksbury to be skating. So I got home. You know it's insane when the Bruins have a West Coast start time and they're still starting 40 minutes before your East Coast men's league game. It's absolutely insane.
Which game had more defense?
Honestly, probably ours, and we had 7 guys, so the legs are feeling it this morning. But yeah, actually similar scores. I think it was last night was 6-5 for the Bruins. Ours was like 7-5 or something like that.
Did you win?
Oh, of course. Not a lot to lose. Can't lose. But yeah, so I got home at like 12:35 and then caught up on the game. And yeah, it was a late night, but it was late night for everybody. And so we appreciate the early morning start today. And yeah, let's get into the opening shifts right now.
All right, I'll go first because I think this game ultimately was decided on special teams. If you wanted to try to find silver linings, Bruins 5-on-5 numbers pretty even. They actually ended up outscoring Vegas 4-3 at 5-on-5. But special teams really let them down, and it started with their first real penalty kill breakdowns of the season. Obviously, the Bruins had been perfect on the PK going into this game. They actually ended up being the last team in the NHL to give up a power play goal against. The Rangers also entered Thursday perfect, but gave one up earlier in the night. But second period, it's a 3-2 game for Vegas at that point. And Bruins go on the penalty kill and give up the same play twice. And then Nesson actually showed a replay where it was there a third time and Vegas passed out of it. But Mark Stone, like on the goal line, left side of the net, going right across the top of the crease to Pavel Dorofeyev, who, by the way, leads the NHL in power play goals so far. He now has 5 through 5 games. You would think that's like the number one thing you got to take away is his one-timer. Bruins gave that play to them twice just on busted coverage. First one, Swayman makes a great save. Second one hits the post, bounces around the crease, and it ends up being Tomas Hertl who knocks it in. Then looks like Bruins maybe turning corner in special teams. They score in the power play, Pasternak. They get 2 big penalty kills in the middle of the second period, including an extended 5-on-3 and a Pavel Zacha 4-minute double minor. Then the Bruins go on a power play late in the second period. Chance to tie the game. Instead, it is a disastrous power play. And multiple turnovers, just sloppy. McAvoy throws a soft wrist shot right into a body. Morgan Geekie, clear miscommunication, drop pass to no one on an entry. And then ends up being 3 strikes, you're out. Casey Middlestad throws a pass right to Mark Stone, trying to find Pasternak for a one-timer. Goes down the other way. William Karlsson, shorthanded goal, 5-3. Early third period, Vegas scores on a power play. Again, another just bad breakdown where William Karlsson ends up with a clear path to the net, goes around Janot, Yoki Haru doesn't switch, like miscommunication, bad defense, whatever you want to call it. Now it's 6-3. And to the Bruins' credit, as you know, we can get into, like, they did fight back, they got it to 6-5, but that stretch of special teams with Vegas scoring twice on the power play and once shorthanded was just backbreaking, and it was a lot of self-inflicted mistakes from the Bruins, similar to Monday's loss to Tampa.
And yet, it was still a 1-goal game with I think like 14:40 was when Asamont scored to make it 6-5, and they had all that rest of the time to try to tie it up, and they still had the ability to come away with a win there. Brian, I think you should go next. Mine will play off yours.
Okay, yeah, and I'll just quickly add to Scott's, because Scott talked about special teams. But one other thing I didn't like either when you talk about situational hockey is the fact that both of Vegas's first 2 goals came right after the Bruins' first 2 goals. So you get a 1-0 lead, not for long. You get a 2-1 lead, you can't even take them into the first intermission, not for long. Vegas ties it. So it's little things like that. Yeah, winning teams, you just can't have that. But Marco Sturm, David Pastrnak, both after the game were asked about the top 2 lines, and also some of the bottom forwards, but specifically to the top 2 lines, how they weren't good enough. And obviously I agree. I think the Pastrnak power play goal is great. I think Lindholm had a really strong player on the net to give. I think it was Morgan Geekie in the crease, a really good scoring opportunity earlier in the game, maybe in the second period sometime. So there were moments of good. The second line, it's just it. We didn't expect a lot heading into the season of Casey Middlestad and Victor Arvidsson offensively. I think the hope was, well, Middlestad has put up close to 60 points a couple of times in his career. Victor Arvidsson has had years throughout his career where he was a 60-point guy. Obviously, that was more like yesteryear for him. And then Pavel Zacha just kind of feels like the babysitter on that line and probably would rather be playing maybe a lineup, but it is what it is. And
well, and eventually did play a lineup on Thursday.
He did. But Middlestat had a goal against Tampa, but you look at him, you look at Arvidsson. Arvidsson has 1 point through 5 games. You need to produce more than that if you're going to be that high in the lineup. And I know that their minutes are kind of sheltered. Obviously, Scott talked about Middlestat's turnover on the power play. They just haven't been good enough yesterday. And I would say in totality through just 5 games this year. But I really do have worries and concern about that production, that middle 6 second line production, because Bridges' opening shift in a moment is going to talk about something else, and I'm also worried about that sustainability. But for now, I'll just leave it with the top line, the top 6 not being good enough last night.
Yeah, and the second line was game 4, which was the last game before they flew out to this road trip. That second line actually did a lot right. And then they followed up with not so hot performance. But my opening shift has to do with where they did get scoring from. And it was a lot of their scoring came from the bottom 6. And so Jeannot scored the first goal of the game, just a kind of greasy goal in the crease tap in. Kastelik has a goal, goes bar down off a face-off win by Corrali. Eyssimont, like I mentioned, in the third, got it to 6-5, just threw it on net, kind of took a weird bounce, ends up in the back of the net. And then Zadorov takes a shot that I still think hit VL and went in. They changed it. They originally had it for VL, then they changed it to Zadorov. I still, no matter how many times I've watched it, I feel like it hits him in the arm and ends up in the, like, it takes a redirection, and it more than likely hit him. But anyway,
yeah, I think they said it hit the Vegas defenseman.
I couldn't tell. Like, I watched it for that too, and it just seemed like it hit him every single time. Also, he celebrated like it definitely, he felt it hit him. But anyway, that's four goals right there with the bottom 6. The third and the fourth line on the ice. So that's encouraging. I know, Brian, you said you don't believe it's sustainable. That's one of the main things we said going into the season was depth scoring could be an issue. This game it wasn't, clearly. But you have to have both show up on the same night. And I will say, 5 goals is normally enough to win you a game.
It should be.
But not when you play the kind of defense and have the kind of breakdowns that they did. So to me, that was, I know special teams was bad, but like the breakdowns were puzzling at times. And we can go through those too.
So I hope that the bottom 6 can be relatively sustainable throughout the year. I would just say it's rather unfair to think that or expect rather historically scorers who have had about anywhere from 10 to 23, 4 points a year throughout their careers to all be, 25 to 30 point guys. Like, I mean, they're all on pace to do pretty well. But again, we saw last year with the Bruins fourth line, they came out in October and we were like, well, because you guys remember last year, the fourth line was the only positive for the Bruins in the month of October. I mean, Kepke, Kastlik, and Beecher at the time before he went dry for 5 months. But, so I love seeing the production from the bottom six, but I'll say it's unrealistic to expect that from them all year. And so when that dries up, yeah, like you need more than Pasternak. You need more than the odd power play goal, which again, we've talked about all of this heading into the season, so it's not totally surprising. But yeah, I just you need a real second line. I mean, I think the third line, you can patchwork the third line throughout the year. You can patchwork the fourth line. Again, especially if you call up a couple of guys from Providence or you put Husadinov in here or whatever, you can tinker with things. But that second line, I guess, Scott, I'll throw it to you. I guess you could make the argument that one of the younger kids in Providence could potentially at some point see second line minutes. But again, when you have Victor Arvidsson making $4 million a year and Casey Middlestat making 5+, and I don't think the Bruins want to push those guys down the lineup. You want them to be the ones producing.
You do, but also like as we get going, it's probably a little too early to just completely pull the plug because Bridget mentioned Monday they had a good game. I thought Saturday that line also had a good game. So it's not like we haven't seen anything from them. But Thursday night was definitely rough. Do you guys want to guess how many total shot attempts Middlestad, Arvidsson, and Zacha combined for?
3.
Yes, that was going to be my guess.
Three.
Three
shot attempts, 1 shot on goal from your second line. Like that's obviously just nowhere near good enough. And especially now I know like Vegas has one of, if not the best forward groups in the NHL. So doing the lineup comparison is for this game in particular is a little unfair, but it's like, you look at just even go like bottom up, like their third line, Brandon Saad, William Karlsson, who else is Riley Smith. It's like that is so much more proven than what you have on your third line. Heck, it might even be more proven than what you have in your second line. And then you look at their second line, which Bruce Cassidy went second line on second line, matching up to start. And their second line is Mitch Marner, Tomas Hertl, and Pavel Dorofeyev. It's like that might be the best second line in the NHL. And sure enough, they totally dominated that matchup. I tweeted at the end of the first period, those two line, Bruins second line, Vegas second line had gone head to head most of their shifts, and shot attempts are 8-0 Vegas with those two lines out against each other. Like, yeah, it comes back to kind of just like how this roster is constructed, which is like they went with this, we kind of jokingly but semi-seriously called it 2 fourth lines because that is kind of what it is, just based on what you would expect production-wise from your bottom six group. And if you're going to construct a lineup that way because you like the physicality and identity and defense and all that, well, you need like a real high-end top six. Like you need 2 proven lines at the top for that to really work. And unfortunately, you only have one line, which, by the way, your top line also struggled Thursday. They at least got some chances, but you couldn't bury them other than Pasternak on the power play. Or if you're going to have a questionable second line, then you need, a third line to help kind of balance it. And, maybe you have like 2.5 lines or something like, but they just don't have that. It's like you have question marks on both middle 6 lines, and that's tough. Now, they did score 5. Like they found a way to score 5. So with cutting back down on the defensive mistakes and the special teams issues, like maybe they win this game. But Yeah, I mean that second line was really just a black hole in this game. And as I mentioned, Marco Sturm did eventually change things up. He moved Zaka up to the top line with Lindholm and Pasternak, moved Geeky down. I don't really think that changed a whole lot. It didn't seem like it really sparked either group.
I mean, they got hemmed in to start the third period. That newly made line of Zaka, Lindholm, and Pasternak, they got hemmed in early on in the period in the third, and I think it may have led to a high sticking penalty maybe on McAvoy that ended up being a goal for Vegas. So that's not what you want to see. But just quickly on that second line of Arvidsson, Zaka, and Middlestat, because you guys are right. They did have a couple of good games recently. But here's I guess what I'm getting at with them. My concern is that I don't know how much they'll be able to produce even when they play well. And just to add some more context, I think both of the goals that they've scored as a line, I believe, have been on the rush in transition. I think Arvidsson against maybe Buffalo. I forget what game it was.
One was definitely a nice in zone passing play because it was there was like a couple touch passes down low and then they got it to the slot.
But it was when Arvidsson kind of entered the zone and kind of went around somebody, right? So it was
there was that.
And then Middlestats was on the rush too against Tampa. So those are the two that I'm thinking of. Maybe there was a third one that I'm blanking on. But yeah, if you look,
I thought Middlestat had one like right in front off like an in zone cycle.
And Middlestats again. You know what? Middlestat does have 2 goals, so I'm thinking of his second goal against Tampa. Maybe his first goal was that, Scott. You might be right about that. But my concern still is though that I just don't like. I am skeptical that line is going to be able to generate production with extended zone time. They don't. I don't have the advanced analytics to back this up, but I don't know. There's something about the combination. They just kind of seem too soft in the puck. Too. I don't know. I just don't see it with that line. I haven't seen it with that line from the jump, despite having some moments. I just question their ability to produce even when they play well. Ultimately, is my fear for them.
Well, and I'm not saying this as an overreaction. I just want to bring it up because we're talking about not being sure about production from that line. And, personnel could be, how could personnel be swapped and switched around to try and change that? And I'm like looking at Providence season so far. There's a few guys that are up towards the top of the league in their stats already. And like when we talk about, how could you change up the middle 6 personnel? Like who do you think could slot in? Like my first thought was Patra or Blumel. And then you'd have to send Beecher or VL down, like obviously there would have to be a transaction the other way too. I don't think anyone would think it was the worst thing for Beecher to get sent down. Beecher hasn't even played yet. So keeping an extra guy from Providence, switching them in to try to spark more offense, I guess you could try. But you know who who's leading the AHL in goals right now?
Is it Steve's?
Yeah.
Lysell.
Yeah.
Wow. What is it? How many is it?
He's got 3 goals and an assist.
Okay, so it's all from that one game, that hat trick.
Yeah. Patra has got 4 assists. I don't think Blumel's done much yet, but anyway, you could theoretically at some point and it's probably gonna take longer because 5 games in, I don't think the experiment is over with the current middle 6 combination, and they did win a few games before they lost the last 2. But at some point, if say we're 10 games in and it's clear it's not really clicking and you're moving around the guys that you already have up, like you're going to have to take a shot probably on someone coming up and filling in.
Well, and Scott mentions that how they have 2 fourth lines, and we've talked about that, right? But I mean, even outside of that, like Arvidsson he played some fourth line minutes on recently. Now, obviously, Edmonton's forward grouping is deeper than Boston's, but I mean, he hasn't, even outside of the Bruins' bottom two lines, there's like Arvidsson at this stage in his career is not a top six forward, and he's on that Bruins line out of necessity. And I'm not trying to come down on the player. I'm trying to be realistic about what we can expect from a production standpoint. And I mentioned last episode, I'm never gonna shit on Arvidsson's work ethic as long as he keeps bringing it. And I have no doubts that he will. But again, like, are they asking him to be somebody that he's not at this stage in his career? Because if he really was, and to be fair, I'm sure I think he moved up and down Edmonton's lineup. He was kind of like a Swiss Army knife type player, but I don't know. I just,
yeah, it's very fair concerns, like, and because I mean we've talked about this from the start. It's like there's a lot of wishful thinking that needs to happen for that to be a good second line. There's a lot of bouncing back, guys getting to where they were 2-3 years ago for that to be a good second line, and like it's possible that happens, right? Like it's possible those guys get back to that level. It's also possible they just are what they were last year, which is just not going to be nearly good enough to be a second line. So I still think it's a little early to be like calling this either way. Like the concerns are valid. I'm not at the point right now where I need to be calling guys up from Providence and stapling Arvidsson or Middlestat to the bench. Like I don't need to do that yet. But it's something to keep an eye on. Like Brian, to your point about sustainability, like 5-on-5 so far this season, that line has actually outscored the opposition 3-2, which seems good, right? Well, their expected goals right now are at 38%, according to Evolving Hockey. So, like, that's unsustainable. Like, 38% expected goal share does not translate over the long term to being a +1 5-on-5 or even breaking even. That translates to somewhere down the line, they're going to stop shooting 21% as a line, or they're going to give up more goals, and that's going to swing negative.
So can you just explain that though? Like that means that the opponents that line would be scoring 38% of the goals, and the opponent's line that's against them is scoring 62% of the goals when they're on the ice?
Correct.
Okay. Sometimes I gotta really think about these advanced stats. And I know I'm not the only one, okay? So
yeah, so like just think of it as like 50% expected goals means you're breaking even in terms of chances. You're generating as many chances as you're giving up. So over 50% is good. That means over the long term, you would be expected to be a plus line. Below 50% means you're going to be expected with a large enough sample size to be a minus line.
yeah. So I mean, yeah, obviously it's super early in the year, but it's more or less just kind of intuition coming in that is why I feel this way. But yeah, you're on a West Coast trip. You're not making any changes right now.
no, and that's why I said not now. But at what sample size do you decide? Because really, you're not risking a lot to send down Beecher, or maybe VL, but probably not him either. And you have Kuznetsov, who you could probably slide in, wherever, and then the problem is if you're not planning on using someone like Patra on a nightly basis, then that's where it becomes harmful for his development. But if you're using him more, say 70%, 80% of the time, then I don't see an issue with rotating out Kuznetsov and, say just another one of the bottom six guys in a rotation. So I don't know. I think there's not a lot of risk to doing it. It's not going to happen until we've gotten further and you can tell, okay, this is lacking in, playmaking or finishing, and then trying to plug somebody that can do that from Providence in.
Well, and with Patra specifically, it comes back to another issue we talked about through all training camp, which is you kind of have a logjam here at center. And Marcus Sturm told us, he likes Patra more at center. I would agree. I think he's always looked better at center than wing. I don't think Casey Middlestad's a winger. I don't really think that works when he gets bumped over to the wing. And Fraser Minton is definitely better as a center. So if in order for all of them to be in the lineup, like someone's getting bumped to the position that's not their strongest position. So like that kind of sucks for Patra. It comes back to the same issue we've discussed, which is like it kind of feels like he's blocked until or unless you move Casey Middlestad, if that's what you end up doing, or maybe Fraser Minton struggles at some point and they say, okay, some more time in Providence would be good for Fraser Minton right now. I said I would like Fraser Minton at fourth line center, but that's blocked. And by the way, like your fourth line's been good. I have no issues there. But yeah, like there is what I mean, you lack great wing options. You end up talking about like, well, which center can we move to the wing? And then it's like, or do you, to some other names you mentioned, like, do you call it Blumel, who, it's only a couple of games, but hasn't been lighting it up in Providence the same way that top line in Providence did on Sunday? Or do you try Fabian Lysell, who did not have a good camp and really didn't do anything to force your hand, but had a hat trick on Sunday? Like, again, it's going to take more time to sort through this and figure out like who really deserves that first call up. But I do feel like we're going to keep kind of circling back to like the same issues we talked about all preseason, because it's like, yeah, those are real issues. There's a reason we talked about them.
Well, and you already have Pavel Zacha, who you could truly make the argument, and I don't think it's crazy to say this at all. In fact, it's probably true. Pavel Zacha is probably the better center, the best center of Patra, Middlestat, and Minton at this stage in all their careers, and you have him playing wing right now because your winger depth is so poor, and because you have this logjam that Scott's talking about. So, I mean. And again, why not put Zacha at center? Because Middlestat's incapable of playing wing. Well, he's also not very great at playing center if we're talking defensively either. So I don't really, whatever. But yeah, Bridget, to your question, I'll say about how long should you see the sample? I can't put a finite number on it, but what I can say is this Bruins team cannot afford to have an October where they finish with a losing record. Honestly, I feel like even 500 for this team at the end of October would be tough for them to come back from, because I just think they have to get ahead of the pack so much if this group wants a playoff chance. And last October, they finished the month 4-5-1. And if you guys remember, that was a terrible month of hockey. It was Montgomery's job was already in question before we even hit November. They had some ugly losses, but they were 4-5-1. It felt like it was the end of the world, and it kind of ended up being that. So they've had some valiant comebacks in the last couple of games. They've tried to dig themselves out of holes that they've gotten into, but they've lost 2 straight games. Not a big deal. I mean, look around the league. Most teams have at least a couple losses, but if this turns into a 3, 4, 5 game losing streak, because it's not going to get much easier, right? Like you got Colorado coming up, Utah twice. Utah has a lot of skill, and they will make you pay on defensive mistakes if you keep having them. Florida's in the mix, so like this is, you can sit here and look at it and say, well, you know what? The Bruins fought hard against a really good Tampa team and a really good Vegas team, 2 teams that everybody had as good playoff teams entering the year. And they lost 2 1-goal hard-fought games, and they're right there with them. Or you can look at it and say they were exposed multiple times against these good teams and failed to win those games and get any points out of it, and they're on a 2-game regulation losing streak heading into some tougher talent. So I don't know. I mean, if you keep losing, you're going to have to do something, because this team can't get behind the 8 ball in the standings in the month of October.
Yeah, that's true. Like I Yeah, I feel like they need to at least like be right in the mix, like right in the thick of it. I don't really think this team's made to build up any kind of cushion either. If they're going to be a playoff team, I think they're going to be fighting for it the whole way. Like I just don't think they're a team that's going to, get out ahead and like have a cushion to fall back on. So they're going to have to build throughout the year anyways. So to me, like you just can't fall behind in this first month. Obviously, they haven't yet. They're 3-2, 600 points percentage puts you right in the. I think that's tied for sixth best in the East right now in the very very early going. Like you're in it. There's some surprise teams, maybe ahead of you off to hot starts. Like Detroit is 3-1. Montreal's 4-1. That's a team, I had taken a little bit of a step back, and so far they have not. They've been like the most exciting team in the league so far, maybe. But then there's also teams behind you that you expect to pick it up. Tampa is still 1-2-1 so far. Like I think they're probably going to get going at some point. Florida is 3-3. Like we know they're going to hang around. Maybe they don't run away with the division or anything, but we expect them to be in it the whole way. So, yeah, this weekend now becomes really interesting. Like it's a tough back-to-back. Colorado on the front end, one of the best teams in the league. Utah, a good team that a lot of people think is going to take a step forward. We'll see if they do, but you're on a back-to-back, so there's a challenge there. But now, like it feels like to salvage the trip, it's like you got to get at least 2 points somewhere in there. And I was listening to Razor on WI Afternoons yesterday, Thursday before the game, saying like I think you'd be happy if you came out of this trip with 3 points. Well, getting 0 out of the first one really puts you behind the 8 ball there. Like I think at this point you'd be thrilled if you came out of this weekend with 3 points. Realistically, though, it's like obviously nothing's a must win this early in the season, but like feels like you got to find a way to get 2 somewhere in there.
Yeah, and you know what's going to be a big help into doing that would be getting Hampus Lindholm back. And I don't know if that's going to be in the next game or two. He is on the road trips. You would imagine that you would think he would be good enough for one of them. But
and they did say that he practiced in full contact for morning skate the day of the Vegas game.
Which like there's no contact in morning skate, so
right.
Yeah,
you
I was going to say
it with a grain of salt when people frame it that way.
Yeah, that was Love Adam. That was Adam Pellerin's hit in the early part of the game. But yeah, he's.
Oh, you know what I'm looking forward to is Adam meeting Utah's new mascot on Sunday, Tusky. You guys see this thing?
Yeah, it's an abomination. No,
it's scary.
I don't know if I have actually.
It
is a terrifying looking mascot.
Like ice blue, and it's like it looks angry.
Is Gritty threatened?
Gritty said.
Oh, now listen, Gritty's gonna have like the hijinks and the like the rat mess with people, Martian type of mascot. I think Tusky is just gonna kick the shit out of every other mascot in the league. Like ooh. I don't know that anyone can take Tusky.
Also,
but Adam Pellerin's one of these guys who like. I don't know, like either mascots pick fights with him or he picks fights with mascots. He's had issues like at like every arena in the NHL. So I'm looking forward to that confrontation.
Okay, great. I didn't know that he.
Adam might not make it back from the trip.
Yeah, I mean, I'm afraid of mascots probably because I worked at Providence for as long as I did.
I was gonna say that's the real scariest mascot.
The scariest one, the PC Fryer. Oh my god, but yeah, it's just a mammoth. They should have went more like the mammoth from
Ice Age.
Ice Age, yeah. Oh, they should have gotten Scrat.
I mean, I think like kids are gonna cry when they see this thing.
I gotta look it up. But real quick, guys, just back to Lindholm because
before Scott sidetracked us.
I will say, is probably my biggest concern for this Bruins team. His health scares the shit out of me. You miss you missed 65 games last year, and he had setbacks because he wasn't supposed to miss that much time originally. So you're kind of trepidatious about well the setbacks that he suffered, and then he comes back and he's all summer he's saying how healthy he is and ready to go he is, and then he suffers an unrelated injury in the moment the first moments of first few shifts of their second game of the year, and he's been out ever since. And to me, it's like, okay, is this one of those situations where he's just gonna be an unlucky player for in the injury department? And if he is, this Bruins team is, even with Hampus Lindholm, they are anything but a sure thing as a playoff team. But if they want to be a playoff team, they're gonna need him. And you've seen his absence. We saw it all last year, but we've already seen it early in this year, where you look at the power play goal last night that Vegas scored, William Karlsson, right? So Fraser Minton doesn't clear the puck down the ice. Bad luck, bad aim, call it what you will, goes off a shin pad. Marner hits Karlsson coming down the right wing boards. I actually thought Jeannot, as the forward in that situation, did a decent enough job staying with Karlsson, who's a better skater than Jeannot. And at that point, if you're Jeannot, you're expecting one of your two defensemen to fill in the gap there and contest Karlsson at the net front. Well, Jordan Harris, and I know what he's doing, he peels off to the right because he's trying to anticipate and telegraph Karlsson dropping the puck off the boards to the defenseman and then easy clear for Boston. Well, that's great, Jordan, except for the fact that he didn't do that. But the bigger sin on the play was Jokiharju, who was trying to take away Ivan Barbashev in the slot as a passing option. But in doing so, he literally gave Karlsson a free open lane to the net to beat Swayman. And it's like, well, Henry, I understand you're trying to take away the slot pass, but who's the greatest scoring threat in that situation? Barbashev or the guy who's coming full steam ahead to the goal mount with the puck? So again, like, you see those guys in that situation penalty killing because McAvoy's in the box. Zadorov and Peak had been on the ice prior, and Lorai's not a PK guy. So you miss Hampus Lindholm in that situation. And I will say, Jokiharju in particular in that play, that's not even he's not on a penalty kill very often type of blunder. That's just a hockey blunder. You can't like overcommit to the slot there. But anyway, just your guys' thoughts on how the defense has, the goal total hasn't been great the last couple of games, but how have they seemed to you in general in Lindholm's absence? Just any thoughts on everything about their decor and Lindholm?
Yeah, I think this was the game where you really noticed it because, we talked about like Jordan Harris came in and played well for 2 games, and it's like, oh, that's nice to see. And, if he can do that, then everyone else can kind of stay in their roles. But he had, even beyond that goal, like, I thought he had a tough game Thursday. That Jokiharju had a tough game. McAvoy for the second straight game did not look like McAvoy, like what you need him to look like. I mentioned he had kind of a lazy wrister on the power play. That was a turnover at one point. Takes a penalty, like, just not the level you expect him to be at. So yeah, like this was a game where I think it was pretty obvious that you miss Hampus Lindholm, and we're asking too much of guys to step into roles that they're not really used to. And that goal, that power play goal for Karlsson, was really the epitome of it, because that's 2 defensemen out there who, in a perfect world, are not on your penalty kill at all. Like you said, like, Hampus Lindholm would be out there if he's in the lineup. Charlie McAvoy's in the penalty box, so he's not out there. And Zadorov and Peak had already done their PK shift to start the penalty kills. So by default, Harris and Jokiharju have to be next over the boards because, Mason Lohrei has done a little bit of penalty killing, but obviously not his strong suit either. So like you're very limited on options at that point. So yeah, you saw it. And as far as Lindholm's health, like, I get it. I do have to push back against like the comments we're seeing online of like, oh yeah, of course he's hurt again. Like, he's always hurt. And it's like, he fractured his kneecap last year. Like, you go stand in front of a shot and have it fracture your kneecap and tell me how easy it is to get back out on the ice. Like, it's one of the toughest injuries for a hockey player. We said this at the time when Rich Keefe first reported. That's what it was. Like, I think we were on here the next day or two, and I was like, man, I hate hearing that. Like, that's just a tough one. It's not surprising at all to me that he had setbacks. That injury usually comes with setbacks. Their recovery is usually not smooth. And even like this new injury being quote unquote unrelated, it's like it could be related if he's still not, if he's not 100% confident in that knee and is like overcompensating. Like, maybe he put stress on something else that led to this injury. Like, we just don't know, but you do always, lower body injuries can often lead to other lower body injuries, because if your knee's sore, you overcompensate and now something happens with your hip or your calf or like
Well, and that's why I'm nervous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's my only comment on that. Like, he's an absolute warrior, but I think Bridget mentioned in a recent episode that you couldn't even see what it was that ailed him on that play. And that's why I'm just like, oh boy, I hope he's not just injury riddled the rest of his career now, which obviously is dramatic. He's still only 32. He's got a long way to go. I'm just nervous because he's a very important player.
Yeah, I think if you go back to that play, what I'm guessing, so he kind of pinches down the boards and like sort of stops on the puck, like instead of just picking up with the stick, he's kind of like stopping as he comes down the boards, and you could see like like a little bit of like a leg shimmy, like something that just looks slightly awkward. And I'm thinking about it now, like I'm assuming that's what it is. We still don't know with 100% certainty, but like the way he described it when he talked to the media on Tuesday out in Vegas, that's where my mind went, because he said like he just kind of, I forget exactly how he worded it, but he said he like leaned on a little awkward or something, and he just felt something kind of catch.
Yeah, don't like that.
So
But
what's it, like a pulled muscle, do you think, or is that something that heals in a couple of weeks? Is that like because that's how long he's been out? He'll have been out for, right? Assuming he comes back at some point on this trip, it'll have been out for like a week, 2 weeks, week and a half.
Well, it's been a week so far, right?
Yeah.
So if he's back Saturday, it's like it's like 9 days, 10 days.
Just be like a tweak or something. I don't know. Enough to keep you out 3-4 games, but not bad enough to be out more than a couple of weeks. I don't really know what type of injury that would be, but I don't know.
Yeah, unless they're just being cautious. But
Maybe that's probably what it is too.
But the fact that he wasn't practicing in contact when they were back in Boston was concerning. Because if you're being precautionary, I don't know if that's like a little bit more than just precautionary, but yeah, obviously he's a huge part of the defense. Him going down last year was, part of their demise probably. And when him and McAvoy were both out, you could see just how much they made a difference. And when I was on with Arcand right before the season started, or right after the season started, and he was like, "Oh, what's one thing that the Bruins need to do to turn it around this year and or to be a playoff team?" And I was like, "It's not just one thing," but I listed 3 things, and one of them was both McAvoy and Lindholm being healthy. And so far, we've already hit a snag in that. A little over a game into the season, and Lindholm's already been out. And when it first happened, and Sturm talked about it in the press conference after that game against Chicago, it sounded like he was not super concerned about it and that it was going to be like very short term. But I think it's already gone past what I thought for how long it was going to be based on the original assessment. So that's tough. If he doesn't get back on this road trip, then I think real concern. Because I mean, he could have been, I mean, obviously they try not to send guys on trips for if they're not going to get in, but what if they were looking at it as like, oh, it's going to be a bonding trip and we have a lot of new guys and everyone should be there, and we're going to Vegas and we're going to do whatever. Like, he probably wanted to go on the trip too. So I don't know. These are things I've thought of.
Yeah, but he practiced with the team Wednesday, so you're not like if he hadn't improved, then he still wouldn't be in practice. So I think he is clearly making progress and is pretty close. They didn't even rule him out on Wednesday. They waited till after Thursday's morning skate. So I gotta imagine he's playing one of these next two. I don't know if you throw him into a back-to-back right away. So like, even if he plays Saturday, maybe they have a plan where he's off Sunday or something. But yeah, it would be a little. You're right. Maybe the team bonding aspect changed it, but it would be a little odd to bring him if he's not going to play at all any point in the trip.
It's a good point on the back-to-back, Scott. That is a tough situation to put him in. It's also a tough situation to put him in first game back. Hey, enjoy dealing with McKinnon, Natchez, and Makar on the rush when they inevitably try to go down the ice on you. And three of the best straight ahead skaters in the league, probably not named Connor McDavid, but yeah. So let's talk about some of the good things that happened last game, because there were a couple. One thing that I liked in particular was their start, right? I mean, they got off to a good start, which, you look at the Tampa game and the Vegas game, and you can say, well, both games the Bruins were down by, they found themselves down by 3 and whatnot, but it was in different fashions, right? The Tampa game, they weren't ready to go, and we credited them for not rolling over when it was 4-1 in the second period, because the Bruins last year would have lost that game 6-1. Last night against Vegas, they get off to the early lead on a great forecheck by Tanner Jeannot. Tanner Jeannot, retrieves the puck on the dump in, goes to the front of the net, causes havoc in the crease. And what I liked about McAvoy's decision there was just recognizing that there's traffic in front and just get the puck to the net. It doesn't have to be this beautiful play. And that's what he did. And Jeannot buries the rebound. Obviously, I didn't like the fact that the Bruins allowed Vegas to respond quickly thereafter, and then again on their second goal. But in regards to their second goal, again, similar. Zadorov just getting the puck to the net with bodies in front, and good things happen. So I like that simplicity there. And then yeah, obviously you go down 6-3 early in the third period, and that's an easy one to lose 7-3, 8-3 even, especially last year for the Bruins. So the fact that they claw right back and make it 6-5, and to the point where Bridget even mentioned earlier, they still had like, I think 12 plus minutes left down a goal, and they got a power play. So, you have a power play with a chance to win the game, to tie the game, and you don't take advantage of it. You had a power play earlier in the game, down 4-3 with all momentum on your side. You give up a shorthanded goal. So I don't like the squandering of those power plays, despite Pastrnak scoring on a power play as well. But if I had to mention a couple of highlights that I liked in that game, was how the Bruins responded after going down 6-3, and I like their start and getting traffic in front. The last 5 minutes, they couldn't generate shit. That was like slap puck. So that's not a positive after making it 6-5. And I didn't like their power play after making it 6-5. But there were some good things to take that last year's team just wasn't doing even in October.
Yeah, for sure. This team doesn't roll over, at least not yet. And they have more of an ability to hang around and even mount comebacks than I would have thought. Like, I just didn't think they would be able to score enough to be in a 2-goal hole and have a chance to come back, never mind 3 goals, and still make it a game with 15 minutes left. So that is encouraging. That's more offense, more pushback than I thought this team was going to have facing a situation like that. Now, in both cases, Monday and Thursday, obviously they gave up one too many goals, right? Like, they were able to get it within 1, but still not able to find that tying goal. So, but yeah, I mean, that is encouraging. Like, even last night, even being late at night, like, I didn't feel like I wanted to turn the game off. There's part of me that was like, they could still make this a game. And sure enough, they did. So, that just like as a viewer, that's a good feeling to be like, they're down 4-1, like, game's over. I'm going to go find something else to watch.
Or go to bed in this case.
Yeah, or in this case, just go to bed.
Yeah.
But yeah, What was I just gonna say?
Sorry.
No, that's fine. It was a separate thought, but I'll think of it in a minute.
Well, I'll say something, then maybe it'll come back to you. But to your point, Scott, that they're within one. They do show some resilience. They stay in it, even though some of those are deflating, right? Like the shorthanded one, that's a deflating goal. And you go down by 2 in that situation, and then they still come back and they keep scoring and they finish out the game with the last 2 goals of the game. Couldn't get the final one that they needed to tie it at 6, but I think that's definitely encouraging. And I think if if you're Marco Sturm, you're saying to your team, we clean up 2 like mistakes that were split second mistakes, then this is a 5-4 win, right? Like this is, if Middlestat doesn't turn the puck over on the power play, leads to the shorthanded goal. And if Yoki Haru just steps in to play defense instead of allowing the drive right to the net, like those are 2 goals that probably don't happen. And those are things you can fix. And hopefully you can clean that up. And those are split second mistakes that you end up going down 2 more goals than you probably should have. And like I said, in games that you score 5 goals, you should be able to win those games. So
I know what I was going to say. And it's so to put a little bit of a Debbie Downer spin on it. Part of the reason you've been able to get back in these games is Tampa has been a very sloppy defensive team in the early going. Vegas has also been a sloppy defensive team. And I thought Akira Schmid, their number 2 goalie, who was in for a slightly banged up Aiden Hill, I thought he was bad Thursday night. I thought he had a bad game. He gave you a couple to help you get back in it, thinking of AC Mont's goal in particular that might have maybe slightly deflected off the defenseman's stick, but still just beats him 5-hole. Even like Pasternak's goal, like good shot getting it through 2 defenders coming out to challenge him, but beats Schmidt under the arm. I thought the rebound on the Janot goal, like no rebound control there. So, like that helps you. And it got me thinking, like, there are a lot of teams right now in the early going playing sloppy defense that is normal early in the season. Unfortunately, the Bruins these last 2 games have also been one of those teams, and they really can't be. Like, this is a team that really needs to be like more buttoned up than the opposition to start the year in order to, catch some teams off guard or maybe beat some teams that on paper they're not as good as. And for 3 games, it looked like they were that team and they were getting the great goaltending behind it. But now you're seeing them make kind of the same mistakes that a lot of other teams are making in the early going. And they're a team that can't really afford it. Like, one of the things like this team has to be is more buttoned up than the opposition.
Yeah. And just to counter some points that you guys made, Bridget, when you mentioned that if only the Bruins didn't do this mistake or that mistake, then it's a 5-4 win. But the unfortunate reality is that I'm sure that if Vegas looks at the film, they could say the same thing. If we didn't make this mistake or that mistake, then we win 6-2 or whatever. But and then yeah, like EC Mont's goal is a leaky one. Pasternak's goal is a leaky one. But you know what? I will say EC Mont's goal was first of all, it should never have gone in. Okay, but he did make like a nice deceptive quick release with a defense screening the goalie. Like it was an unexpected shot, and sometimes those shots get rewarded when they ordinarily shouldn't go in. And Pasternak has been working on that patented like pump fake, power play wrist shot into his arsenal as well. But on the Bruins side of things, Vegas got some lucky goals too, right? I mean, AC Mont's goal shouldn't have gone in. Well, Jack Eichel's goal, probably shouldn't have gone in. Dorofiev's second goal, which, by the way, if he did indeed get credit for that goal, not Hurdle, but if you've watched Vegas's film this year, and I have even before that, they're on the Bruins radar this week. That play they do all the time in the power play. You go down the stone on the goal line, right across the door for everyone. It's if you look at Vegas's power play on film, it's their go-to. You said it, Scott. So you would think that they they would prepare for that. But also, you mentioned that Vegas had a poor rebound on the Janot goal. I thought Swayman, who was largely hung out to dry, didn't like the rebound control on Vegas's second goal to tie the game with a minute and a half left in the first. I don't. I'm blanking on the goal scorer's name because I think he's a young kid. But
Cole Reinhard.
yes, thank you. So I mean that was kind of I thought that watching that play, the Bruins defensively were in fine position. It was kind of a nothing shot from the point that Swayman just had trouble with in his chest protector. Next thing you know, it bounces into the slot. Harris looks bad on the play because he's trying to swat a puck that shouldn't even have been in the air. And then it's a quick turnaround shot for the goal. So, I guess the best way to summarize this is that both teams had some fortunate bounces go their way or whatnot. And at the end of the day, Vegas just they earned one more than the Bruins did. So they definitely have to clean it up because unlike Vegas, Boston, I don't think throughout the course of the season is going to be able to outscore those mistakes. Teams like Vegas and teams they can, right? That's the big difference there.
Yeah, that a couple of those goals, Fraser Minton, some teaching moments. The Reinhardt one that you mentioned, like Bruins get a shot block, and I think Minton genuinely just didn't know where the puck was. But Brick highlighted on the Nesson broadcast, like turns towards the boards, and instead the puck's right back to the point to the defenseman. I think it was Ben Hutton, and now he has a clear shooting lane because Minton turned the wrong way and gave up inside ice to let Hutton get that shot off. And then Minton was also the one closest to Dorofeev on that power play goal. And, again, like on the penalty kill, there's always structural things and in terms of positioning of like, all right, I'm not necessarily going to pin that just on Minton, but he does end up being the one who's closest to Dorofeev. And like, you got to at least be close enough to get a stick in there. And he wasn't, on two passes. And like I said, really, really three, because right before the goal, Stone has the puck in the same spot and that passing lane's open and he hesitates and takes it behind the net. And then he just like pops back into the same spot and he's like, nah, I'm just going to do it again. And like the lane's there again. So, yeah, like obviously I think we're mostly encouraged by Minton's start to the season, and he is a smart defensive player. Like I would expect him to clean it up, but definitely stuff he's probably not going to like seeing on video Friday or Saturday whenever they have their next meeting.
Looking ahead to the next two games of the road trip, Avalanche at 9:00 on Saturday, and then Sunday at 7 with the Mammoth. I assume a goalie split. I think probably Korpisalo then Swayman, just keep going back and forth.
I think I'd go Swayman in Colorado.
I mean, they could because Colorado is the better team, but if they, depends what they decide. Rest wise, I'm sure we'll see a split no matter which guy's the first or the second game. And then they hit this homestand, which I'm curious if any of our listeners have tickets to any of these games in the homestand, because the 21st is the game against the Panthers. And I know that's one that people mark, especially if you're a Marchand fan, you might want to go grab those. But that'll be an interesting homestand as well. I think the potential to struggle in that because it's Florida, Anaheim, which shouldn't be the same kind of challenge, and then the Avs again, all at home. So, and I'll say it just because I know we've said it before, but maybe people missed it. Matt Tkachuk is not going to be playing in that game for Florida. And actually the Bruins play Ottawa 2 times in the next 4 weeks, and Brady Tkachuk's out too.
3 times. They play him 3 times in the next month.
Really? Okay. I know they had early November and then this last week of October, but Yeah, they're gonna catch him without Brady Tkachuk. So that's unfortunate, I guess, if you wanted to go watch games that involve the Tkachuks, but they're both injured right now.
Just all the more reason for Boston to try to take advantage of an early calendar this year, catching teams when their defensive structure probably isn't mid-season form, and certain teams that are in their division that have injuries. And the back-to-backs, you said they're playing Colorado at 9 and then Utah at 7. So that's both of those
Saturday, Sunday.
Both of those games are in mountain time, right? So that means that the Bruins are playing 2 games less than 24 hours apart in start time. I don't recall that ever being a thing on back-to-backs.
By NHL like bylaws, that's the shortest turnaround you can have is 22 hours between start times.
I always thought back-to-backs were always at least 24 hours. So you play at 7, you play at 7, or you play at 7, you play at 8 the next day, or you play a matinee, the next day you're playing at night, or I don't recall ever being within 24 hours. That's, man.
You see it sometimes like later in the year, like they'll have like a 3:00 Saturday game and a 1:00 Sunday game. Like you'll see that sometimes.
It's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. It is tough to finish up a road trip with travel. Obviously, Colorado to Utah is not a long trip, but like it's still a trip. You still got to get on the plane.
I mean, both those teams have a lot of speed and skill. Obviously, Colorado's more established than Utah, but I mean, you look at Utah's roster, and they, like I said earlier, they'll make you pay if you have defensive lapses like we've seen the last couple of games. So, fortunately for the Bruins, I feel like they've played Colorado well historically, especially just in general. I feel like they played Colorado well. So hopefully that stands true tomorrow. Utah. Utah/Arizona has been a tough go for the Bruins the last couple of years. They present challenges for them.
Just watch out for Tusky.
Yeah, I know.
I think is probably not the most creative name, just saying.
Tusky.
But
yeah. I like Tusky.
I have one final college hockey thought before we go, and a shameless plug. So if you're in the Boston area this weekend, you can see a top 3 matchup. BU is now the number 1 team in the country. They're playing number 3 Michigan State. Porter Martone is on that team. So if people were interested in kind of the guys that we were talking about a lot when we were wondering, who would fall to Boston at 7, or even before we even knew they were at 7, like guys that could be available then, he ends up going before Hagens. But he hasn't scored yet. Actually, he's got a few assists, but he hasn't scored his first collegiate goal yet. Those are 2 really good teams. A great goalie matchup. Yegorov for BU, and then Augustine for Michigan State. So that's going to be. I think that might be the best goalie matchup of the whole year. If you believe in Yegorov being, like a top 5-6 goalie.
What about the kid in Maine that you like when he plays BU?
Alvin Boy is also good. But he's in the same spot as Yegorov. I think like they could both take a step. They both would need to take a little bit of a step forward to be considered like a top 3 finalist for the Richter. But either way, huge matchup. I assume the atmosphere is gonna be crazy. As of us recording right now, it's Friday morning, so the first game is on ESPN 2 tonight at 7, and then the next game. So I'm not broadcasting that one. I'm actually doing a women's game at the same time. But the Saturday game, 7:00, ESPN Plus. I'll be on that. And I'm excited for that one because I just think it's gonna be a great series. And two really good teams, 2 good goalie matchups. 34 combined NHL draft picks on the rosters. So a lot of different interests. The scouts are gonna be. I'm gonna run into so many scouts this weekend, I think so.
Yeah, I'm excited for this one. I'll be at a Guinness Friday night for the first game of that series. Saturday, I think I'll be watching from home. Obviously, Bruins play at 9, so
you're listening.
Get in most of the BU game before the Bruins start. But yeah, this should be a good one. This is real heavyweight early season matchup, and we got a couple because then next weekend Denver comes to Boston College, so that's a big one as well.
Also this week, the Nesson game on Friday is Quinnipiac, Maine, which is another top 10 matchup too. So there's a lot of good college hockey going on right now.
Let me try to catch you guys off guard, though. If I had to guess, at least one of you, if not both of you, know the answer to this. With all this talk of college hockey goalies, arguably, and if we're talking hardware, the best goalie in college hockey the last couple of years was Matt Davis over in Denver, right? 2-time national champion. As accomplished as anybody in college hockey. Do either one of you know where he is currently playing? He was undrafted, but do you know where he signed post-college?
I remember hearing about this, but it's escaping my mind right now.
I don't know.
He's with the San Jose Barracuda.
Okay.
He's in the Sharks organization. Which honestly, like, hey, if you're gonna, probably smart by him. I mean, if there's an organization that probably needs somebody to step up, you know, they have somebody that their current goalie. I'm blanking on his name, but you know they have hopes for him. But he's a young player. But
Askarov.
Right? Askarov, yeah. All right. Well, we have Avalanche, Bruins, Mammoth, and Bruins, and then you have the skate pod on Monday. So thank you all very much for listening. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Hey guys, thanks for watching the Skate Podcast. If you want to see more of our videos, visit our playlist.
Not in front of a screen? You can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give us a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and leave a comment.